Hello, everybody, and welcome to this SHERPA interview. My name is Marianne. I work at the European Business Summit, and on the SHERPA project, I work on the advocacy and dissemination. So we are joined here today by Lina Gálvez Muñoz, who's a member of the European Parliament. She is the Vice Chair of the Industry, Research, Telecoms and Energy Committee, and she also sits on the Women's Rights Committee and STOA. So she has advocated in the past for human-centric AI and regulation. So we're very happy to have her here today to share her views on the topic.
So hello, very nice to be here with you, dealing with such important topic. And since artificial intelligence is really getting in all parts of our lives, our economies, our governance, our culture, everywhere. And I think to think about it critically and from many different perspectives, it is essential in order to that this world that will arrive with the unintensive use of artificial intelligence will be with more social justice, with more democracy, if possible, because from artificial intelligence probably we will be building our cosmovision of the world. And it is important, as you were saying before, it's human-centric, and that all ethical aspects are included, and also that our data and our privacy will not be a commodity. And of course, we could educate and prepare the whole society to deal with this deep change in a critical way and with real democratic participation.
So Lina, it's great to have you here today. Thank you so much for agreeing to participate in this interview. And for those of you who are watching the video who don't know about SHERPA, it's an EU-funded project that's been running for about 3 years now. We were focused on the ethics and human rights aspects of smart information systems, primarily things like artificial intelligence. And we've done a number of pieces of research, including some case studies. We did some scenarios, we did focus groups, we did a Delphi study, we did an online survey. We were looking initially at how people use artificial intelligence now, but we were also prompting people to think about what's coming next, how artificial intelligence will be used in the near future and how it's going to impact on society. As I said, we focus mainly on the ethics and human rights aspects, and we've now developed a set of recommendations on how to deal with them. So as I said, we're absolutely delighted to have Lina here to discuss the possible societal implications of artificial intelligence, and focusing especially on the educational aspects. And what does AI mean for education, as I said, both now and in the future? So Lina, why is education of ethics as part of AI so important when it comes to things like future technologies such as artificial intelligence?
So thank you for asking me this question, because it will play a central role. I mean, recent data shows that around over 40%, around 42% of at least the European Union citizens lack basic digital skills. These are absolutely necessary to understand and have a critical, that is important, a critical analysis to decide how to use new technologies and the impact it has in our lives. For example, it will be necessary to understand the implication of sharing our data that then can be used by artificial intelligence on deciding how, when, and to whom to share that personal data. Because as I was saying before, I think personal data should not be a commodity in any case. And I think that socially responsible artificial intelligence, robotic and related technologies have a role to play in contributing to finding solutions that safeguard and promote fundamental rights and values of our societies, such as democracy, very, very important, because it's the way we all participate, the rule of law, diverse and independent media. The impact in media is important, and probably an objective and freely available information. It also implies health and economic prosperity, equality of opportunities, workers and social rights, quality education, protection of children, cultural and linguistic diversity, gender equality, and innovation and creativity. And for all of that, we really need this digital literacy. Therefore, I think that in order to exploit this full potential of artificial intelligence and make users aware of the benefits and challenges that artificial intelligence technologies bring to us, it is necessary to include artificial intelligence, this digital literacy. I prefer to talk about digital literacy in education and training, including in terms of promoting digital inclusion and to conduct information campaigns that give an accurate representation of all aspects of artificial intelligence development. Nevertheless, and I finish with that, the system must be introduced in ways that build trust and understanding and respect human and civil rights. They really need to follow fundamental human principles and values and safeguard the well-being of people and the planet, of course, in which we live. And education, information, and awareness play a central role in this regard. It has to play a central role in this regard.
Okay, thank you. I mean, you've highlighted there things like the digital divide. So do you think there are groups in society which need more this education, sort of the ethics of AI? And at what age do you think they should be introduced to this?
Well, I think about my own daughter, and obviously I'm very worried because they use very easily, they are digital natives, but on the other hand, they lack critical knowledge to understand where they are going. And so I think it should be very early, this education. And in a recent report adopted by the European Parliament in I think it was October 2020 on the framework of ethical affairs of artificial intelligence, robotic and related technologies, for which was the rapporteur of the opinion from the MEP Committee. Education was identified as one of the high risk sectors.
Yes.
This is very important to highlight as well, because technological progress is going to leave behind some people, perhaps even a lot of people, we don't know yet, but it could be. Therefore, it is necessary to highlight how important is education, training, skilling policies, and continuous learning to develop the qualifications necessary in the digital age. To tackle digital exclusion. And as I say, I like to talk about literacy, because it's not only that it's not a question that we all became engineers of artificial intelligence experts. It's that we really need to know what that means for our society, for our works, and so on. So why it is important to talk about this digital literacy. We really need to provide the current and future people and workforce with the necessary literacy, numeracy, and digital skills, as well as competencies in science, technology, and engineering, but also cross-cutting soft skills such as critical thinking, creativity, and entrepreneurship, with a special attention to the inclusion of disadvantaged groups in this regard. I'm very much concerned about gender divide, because the gender gap persists across all digital technology domains, and it is especially important with regard to artificial intelligence. The rise solidifying a male-biased trajectory for the digital sector in foreseeable future. That means not only that men will be taking the best jobs, and maybe we could be seeing an increase in the gender pay gap, but also that it will be a male, normally white, middle-class male, designing this cosmovision. So it will be with all their biases. So we really need to make very important efforts to tackle gender bias and inequality in the digital sector. And that should be reinforced and tackled from the very beginning in our life. So when the kids are really small, but it should along all over our age life, and also approaching from different perspectives. It's not something that concerns only the schools, but it concerns also media, especially, and culture, and especially television, and all the social nets and all these sort of things. Yes.
Yes, I mean, children are exposed to a very wide range of influences these days, especially from early on. So I completely agree. It needs to pervade everywhere. And in fact, in the SHERPA project, we found education was one of the key aspects that all the stakeholders and all of the responses that we had from the people we asked seemed to be very important. So it very much chimes in with what you were saying. Just to kind of push that a little bit further, have you got any ideas on what kind of training you think we should be putting into that sort of curriculum? I know you said it needs to be gender unbiased, but,
yeah, that's for
what
sure.
else?
That's for sure, gender unbiased, but this is not easy. It's not something that, oh, it's gender unbiased, and that is, I mean, as I say, it's not only the school, it's the society as a whole. We should tackle very much, especially now with all this digital world that especially children and young people are substituting more and more to be in the street or be somewhere else, to be in front of a screen, especially now with the pandemic and the COVID. So it's something that is a bit weird in a way. But I would like to reiterate this, the importance of education and continuous learning. It should go on all our in all our life cycle. That's what the word I was looking for, life cycle. In the opinion I was responsible from the MEP Committee, we highlighted the need to make mandatory for users, including workers and consumers, to be informed when a system uses artificial intelligence, particularly with regard to personalized products or services, and to receive meaningful information in easily understandable and accessible form on all ethical aspects of artificial intelligence application relevant today to take informed decisions. So the curriculum should include trainings to understand algorithmic process, not algorithmic themselves, but algorithmic process and value data and how this can be limited or stopped. We highlighted in this opinion the need for competence development through training and education for workers and their representative with regard to artificial intelligence in the workplace to better understand the application of artificial intelligence solution. So we call for a new skill agenda for Europe to address the challenges of adapting and acquiring qualifications, knowledge, in view of ecological and digital transition, including these ethical aspects that should be part of any education and training. The idea is that ethic and all these ethical aspects should be a core part for the education of these developers, programmers, and decision makings within the companies to be aware they should be ethically responsible. We consider that it is also important to ensure that end users and consumers are provided with comprehensive information and that there are regular changes between all relevant stakeholders in this regard. So we need more public engagement and education with regard to potential harms of these artificial intelligence tools. The initiatives should go in the direction of increasing awareness and the relationship among artificial intelligence and sustainable human development. Many initiatives already focus on this, including Foundation for Responsible Robotics, a partnership on artificial intelligence, the Japanese Society for Artificial Intelligence Ethical Guidelines, the Future Society, or Artificial Intelligence Now Institute. This and other maintain that in a clear, open, and transparent dialogue between artificial intelligence and the society is key to the creation and the acceptance and trust of technology. But for that, we really need not only to know what we are dealing with, but also critical thinking. I think it is important to keep and to maintain from the very beginning, that which means not especially the technological side, but the humanistic and social science side.
Yes, and this kind of idea that they need to go in balance, that you need both elements there that you can bring together. Definitely. And I think, as you said, transparency is one of these sort of key issues that's also cropped up a lot in our research as well, the transparency of the information, but also how people can access that. It has to be in a way that people can kind of understand. You also mentioned there are quite a lot of different bodies involved. So do you have an idea on who should be responsible for the training, content and delivery?
Good question. In the report we approved by the European Parliament last October 2020, we put forward the idea of the European Certificate of Ethical Compliance, which would serve, among others, education institutions using artificial intelligence systems for educational purposes. This certificate would be developed in coordination at the union level and would be granted following common criteria and an application process that would be used to certify the positive assessment of compliance carried out with the respective national supervisory authority. We call for synergies and networks to be established between various European research centers on artificial intelligence, as well as other multilateral forums, such as the Council of Europe, the United Nations Education, well, the UNESCO, or the OECD, Trade Organization, and the International Telecommunications Union, in order to align their effort to better coordinate the development of artificial intelligence, robotics, and related technologies. I don't think companies should self-regulate themselves. I think we should regulate it and we should guide it, obviously in a very consensual and democratic way, but I think really it should be regulated. And especially what regards data and knowledge sharing, that it has to be for public good. This is, I think, essential and very important. As I said before, our data is not a commodity. Our personal data is not a commodity. And I think in that respect, if we think as a public good, public authorities have and should have a tremendous role in providing with tools and mechanisms to incentivize data sharing and be vigilant in case of harmful use of such data, and in order also to increase trust in this data sharing. Now we are seeing with the pandemic and how important it was to share data on research, on health, and for the vaccines. It could be very good. I'm not saying that we shouldn't share data. It's just that we should share data for public good and not for company profits as it is, and that our personal data should never be a commodity. I think if we are able to put together trust from citizens, increase data literacy, and promote data sharing for the public good, if we are able to put these three things together, artificial intelligence could be a great tool for our future. But we really need to work with these three together.
Thank you. And so leading on to how we might actually make some of this happen, we've put forward this idea of ethics by design. Could you maybe just tell us what you understand by the term ethics by design?
Well, I wouldn't go just ethic by design. I think the ethical aspects are quite general, and they are closely linked to our human rights and our basic principles. And I think we should not have this ethic by design for each one of the issues we are dealing with. I think the ethical principles should be universal. It's obviously that there are cultural differences. Of course, I'm not approaching that from an ethnocentric way at all, but I really like to think that the ethical principles are basic and common to all human beings everywhere. So I will go on ethical aspects for a very, very general principles. Then we could adapt to the different situations, but I will go for very, very general principles.
Okay. So in SHERPA, we've taken, I suppose, a slightly different approach, where we've actually developed a series of methodologies that can be used in the kind of development and design process. And that's what we call ethics by design. It's embedding various ethical procedures, but also, I mean, as you said, an appreciation for what the ethics is, so the kind of cultural insight, but also some techniques that can enable people to kind of integrate this and be sure that they're kind of, everyone is aware of it, because as you said, it is a tricky subject for people to get their heads around.
Yeah, but I think there are two levels. I'm not saying probably I have not explained myself quite well. I think there are two levels. I think what I think is general, the ethical aspects. I mean, these ethical principles. Then obviously you could, the application should adapt to any situation. And you have said something I think is very important, because it's the only way people really think about the process and get involved into the process and find the best solutions, the best possible solutions. And we have this participation that is so important. But I think we should start from some kind of general principles, is that what I'm trying to say, because sometimes I've been fighting for women's rights all my life, for instance. And sometimes this is because in this culture that is normal, we should not say anything against something that is clearly an attack to human rights. So it's what I'm saying, that I think there are still some general principles that should be common to the humanity, to all human beings. And then, of course, you should apply, but it's, I mean, just to specify or to go even further, but just accepting in a way some general principle regarding ethics on artificial intelligence. As I was saying, for instance, our personal data is not a commodity, and it's not because you are within a company that is using data as a commodity. You should think how to make an ethical use of our personal data as a commodity.
And just finally, given your experience with these topics and these areas, which, as you said, are very complex, how do you think we can best promote these kind of ethical approaches, really bringing ethics and human rights to the forefront?
Well, I think should be, I mean, the public authorities obviously has a lot of responsibility, because they build the rules of the game. And of course could push the other actors to converge. But I think that should be also a kind of promotion. I think this ethical guidelines should be, or principles should be clear, and then to promote all the actors to work together and in a very democratical way. I mean, the problem now is that most of our citizens don't really know. I mean, they know, oh, robots could take out our jobs and all this sort of things, or we are using many aspects of artificial intelligence or related robotic and related aspects more and more and more in our lives, but we don't know, we have no idea. So I think this literacy, digital literacy, is absolutely basic, and we should get involved. Obviously, civil society should be involved, business should be involved, educational institutions should be involved, and I think very, very, very much media, social media, and also cultural creators, because they are now there are all these huge platforms and these networks that are really designing our cultural framework, and I think they should get involved in this co-designed way, but starting from very basic principles that, as I said, I mean, all artificial intelligence development should be human-centric, and our personal data should not be a commodity. And this is very important. It's something that is not happening now. Our personal data is more and more a commodity, and this is becoming more and more a problem, in my opinion.
But I could carry on talking to you for ages. You've raised so many interesting points and interesting questions, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It has been a pleasure.